Hey guys, my name is Nick and welcome to Watch This Now. Amazon Prime is probably my favorite streaming service, and I think it's the number one that does not get any attention, because sure, they might not have the best original series, but they have so many movies, which means tons of horror. I mean, honestly, I could do like a top 50 video of the best horror films on Amazon Prime right now, but I'll keep it to 10 for you guys, okay? So I'm going to give you 10 recommendations for horror films on Amazon Prime. If you're a horror fan in the mood for a scare, I got you covered. At number 10, I have Nosferatu. This is the unofficial adaptation of Dracula from 1922, and maybe German silent films aren't really your speed, but I think this is required viewing for horror fans, and I kind of think that it's just like amazing that it's just sitting there on Amazon Prime. You know the story of Dracula, I don't have to tell you about that, but what's really interesting about this film is that because it was so early in the game, this gave us one of the first iconic horror images from horror films, and I think that should always be appreciated. At number 9, I have Grave Encounters, and this is one of those rare found footage horror films that actually uses the medium to suit the story. And in this movie, we follow a group of paranormal investigators who are running a, paranormal reality show, and they go to this run-down mental facility, and they're trying to just do their regular episode, but turns out the place is really fucking haunted, and shit gets real. This one really works for me personally, because the beginning of the movie kind of plays out like a parody of any Ghost Hunters show, and that kind of makes the characters a bit endearing because we actually kind of get to know them and it's kind of funny, and then things get gradually creepier and creepier, and then this movie's actually scary. Like, normal supernatural movies with all the jump scares, they don't really do it for me, but Grave Encounters is one that I will stand by, and the sequel doesn't suck. I'm pretty sure that is on Amazon Prime too. At number 8, I have Ginger Snaps. This Canadian coming-of-age horror follows two sisters who are obsessed with death. For some reason, they're real freaky, I don't know, but one of them gets bit by a werewolf one night, and I mean, that's really messed up and out of nowhere, but what follows is that sister, she begins turning into a werewolf, and as she comes into her form, her other sister has to deal with those consequences. And, there really just aren't that many good werewolf horror films. What is that about? Why don't we have more? At number 7, I have Starry Eyes. This indie thriller follows a young actress played by Alex Esso who is looking for her big break, and she auditions for a small horror film, and when she's called back, she ends up being pushed to her limits to try and get this role, and things get really freaky and out of control, and I really don't even want to say much about Starry Eyes because it's really best to just go along for the ride. The only thing that I'll give you as far as the horror elements are that it is a different kind of possession film, but it's interesting that this movie came out a couple of years before the Time's Up and Me Too movements, and this movie is like the horror film encapsulation of how Hollywood worked in that sense. This movie is fucked up on so many levels. It is brutal and gory and psychologically tormenting. I highly recommend Starry Eyes if you haven't seen it already. At number 6, I have The Descent. This creature feature follows a group of women who go on a trip together exploring a cave, but they soon find out that they aren't alone and there are some humanoid creatures hunting them. This movie works so well because in the beginning there's this cave-in and they become trapped in there, and it's very much a survival horror film before the creatures even show up, and it makes this really tense and bloody and very entertaining. I highly recommend The Descent. This is one of the best creature features of all time. At number 5, I have Sleepy Hollow, Tim Burton's take on the classic Legend of Sleepy Hollow tale by Washington Irving. This one stars Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci as two 19th century folk who are trying to uncover the secrets behind the Headless Horseman, a murderer who is terrorizing the small village, and they gotta figure out what's going on. And, we don't have a whole lot of big budget horror, and this movie is dark but beautiful and so beautifully violent. This is one that I caught when I was a kid, so it definitely scared me at that time, but now I just think it's like a really entertaining film. I love urban legend folk horror, so this movie just has so much going on for me. Mostly Christina Ricci. At number 4, I have Return of the Living Dead, because what's a good horror list without a layer of 80s cheese? And this movie is a kind of unofficial sequel to Night of the Living Dead, and it follows a group of 80s punks who go to a cemetery to party as a chemical is released that brings the dead back to life. And it's kind of like punks versus zombies. It's so much fun. It has an ending that I did not like the first time I saw it, but this movie has really grown on me, and it's really one of my favorite 80s horror films of all time. At number 3, I have The House of the Devil from director Ty West. This movie is styled like a long-lost 80s VHS tape that you were never supposed to find, but in a good way. In this movie, Jocelyn Donahue stars as a college student who takes a babysitting job to make some quick cash, but once she gets to this house, she finds that she is stuck in a very creepy, odd situation. I don't want to say anything about this movie because it is a slow burn horror that takes its time. A lot of the movie is just our main character kind of hanging around the house. I love the part when she's jamming to her music and running around. It's so much fun. This is a very well done small movie that has some fun surprises towards the end of it. Another one that I did not love the first time I saw it, but as it sat with me, I felt like I had to revisit it, and now I love watching it over and over. I'm so glad it's on Amazon Prime. Definitely give this one a watch if you haven't seen it. At number 2, I have Hereditary. Love it or hate it, this movie is an instant horror classic. It's another one that I don't want to talk about because if you haven't seen it, it's kind of hard to describe where it goes, but it's fun to just let the movie take you on that ride all on its own. I love this movie. It was my favorite movie of 2018. I think it's perfect. Instant horror classic. Love it. And I should also note that Ari Aster's follow-up film, Midsummer, is also currently on Amazon Prime. And I was going to make that my number 2, but Hereditary is just way more horror than Midsummer, but I fucking love Midsummer. And number 1, it's The Cabin in the Woods. One of my favorite horror films ever. I love The Cabin in the Woods. You know the story. A group of college students go to a cabin in the woods to have a fun weekend, but these particular people end up facing the stuff of nightmares, and you might be confused by the scenes that follow a group of people in control rooms, kind of, I don't want to say anything else. In case you don't know much about this movie and you haven't seen it, The Cabin in the Woods is great. It's like every horror film stuffed into one and also is a comedy, and it works. Even people that don't like horror films that I know like this one. So if you haven't seen Cabin in the Woods, you got to. And if you haven't seen it in a while, you know it's worth a rewatch. This movie's fantastic. And I thought I should note that right now, most of the Friday the 13th films are currently streaming on Amazon Prime. We got a Friday the 13th at the end of the week, so if you're a nerd like me and you're feeling a marathon, hopefully Amazon doesn't remove these movies just before Friday the 13th. That would be some bullshit, but that could happen. But I'm a huge Friday the 13th fan. I love them, so I might just have to take the day off to watch all of them. That is my list for the best horror films on Amazon Prime right now. Let me know what your favorites are in the comments below. And if you want to see more of this, I will cover Hulu next because I gotta get that good horror to you guys one way or another. Thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Feel free to like, share it with your friends, subscribe to watch this now, and just thank you again. I'll see you in my next video.